first of all, I just want to say that it's just an incredible honor to have you with us today.
That's a flattering thing for you to say. Thank you.
But you know, I've never actually spoken to you live. So tell me, what are you doing in New York right now, Lynn?
Well, I suppose if you are omnipresent through language, perpetually existing in words, vibrations, in the beginning there was the Word, in our very own King James's Bible, in the beginning there was the Word, then all things are perpetual, all things exist constantly. So not only am I in contemporary, current day New York, I'm in Constantinople, I'm in Addis Ababa, I'm all over the show.
Your name?
William Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Yes, I mean, you know, but by any other name, I'd still smell as sweet. So don't get too hung up on that. Pronunciation seems to be an area that people are concerned about, and spelling, but the signifiers and the symbols aren't the junction at which we should alight. That is not the station at which we should leave the train. Remain on board until you reach a conclusion.
Wow. What about Shakespeare? What about those words? Is that your name? Is it your real name?
Yes, there's no synonym or alias.
May I ask you something? You have an incredibly powerful voice. Do you act in your own plays? Did you?
Yes, through necessity. Often we find ourselves short. I'll seldom take the lead, but often when writing, I'll find a voice that feels in absolute alignment with my own. I can't imagine anyone else doing. Then I will take that role. It's more for convenience rather than vanity or narcissism.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. So now, let's talk about The Tempest. This was your last play. Can you tell me what's in it? What drove you to write it? What is it about The Tempest?
The Tempest is a piece of work that can be approached from numerous angles. One could apply almost hexagonal analysis to this piece of work. You could look at it in the round as it was originally played, or cinematically as it currently exists. But start first with the title of the play, as that is what I did. The Tempest, the storm. Why the storm is intriguing to me is it is the most powerful force that exists within nature, a constant disruption, a reminder that any time we can be rendered impotent or indeed dead, that our lives can be punctuated, scored, rendered useless in a moment, like a line in rock, or a line in sand, or a line in water, or a line in air. All things simply align, but some permanent, some impermanent, some indecipherable. When first regarding the storm, it's impossible not to notice its phenomenal power and to feel weak, impotent, to be cowed by the power of the storm, the way the elements are commanded, this requiem of sweet nature, the potency, to see the elements in alignment, clashing against each other, the ultimate paradox, this symphony, yet this jarring, ugly, dissonant sound and fury. But when first regarding the storm, it's easy to be afeared, to think, oh my God, I'm nothing, I'm worthless, I have no power in the face of this potency. And yet within us all, the storm rages. Whilst being tossed about on the endless ocean of existence, one feels powerless, but the storm is within us all. We can all harness the storm. We are all carbon, water, fire, life. Elementally, the storm is within and without. The storm is a constant, so whilst it reduces us to absolute nothing, whilst it makes us particular, makes us so tiny as to be redundant, it is also a reminder that nothing is more powerful than us. That's why I called it The Tempest. The Tempest.
So it's what's within Prospera. And
She, in your wonderful version, Prospera commands the storm. So it's man's ability to control the elements through magic. At the apex of science and sorcery, there is the potential for all things. Perhaps one day science will cover the territory that religion currently occupies. But for now, we require both. Perhaps through symbiosis and progress, ultimately, we'll reach a point where there is but one unifying theory, where we understand all things through science and through sorcery, where we see the magic in all things. This is the duty, of course, of a playwright. If you live among the mundane, the earthly, if you live among filth and jagged daggers stabbing and slicing and barking dogs and crow's feet tearing each other and cockerels' beaks ripping at feathers and people hanging from a yardarm, people dancing on air, little kicky boots scuffing at the floor, people falling through trapdoors, heads rolling through dust, then you need to find a form of entertainment that's quite captivating.
That thing about the Tempest, I want to get back to because I think that's exactly, isn't this, I mean, here I am trying to interpret your work, right? I'm trying to interpret your work, but this thing that you brought up about the science and religion and nature, tell me something about why you wrote the character Ariel, the spirit. What is that? What is the spirit?
Ariel, the ethereal spirit within us all, is the relationship between man and God. We're not just fucking rutting beasts scrabbling around after orgasm and shekels and coins and looking for rubies and bright sparkling things. We are also made in the image of God. We are also the realization of the divine. We are deities made flesh. Through Ariel, we contact that. In all of our minds, throughout this neurological storm, this Tokyo of clashing ideas that scores our minds, there are dangling tendrils from the heavens that we can through which we can access genius. Ariel is the unity between man and God.
Okay, so now tell me, at some point you wrote that Ariel says that we should forgive, that Prospero should forgive and not follow through on vengeance. But you also had Ariel the mischief maker. So explain that, the spirit that can go from virtue to...
It's interesting that, isn't it, Julie, that people imagine somehow that sobriety and seriousness have more weight and value than mischief. But tell me a folklore that doesn't have within it the mischief maker, the trickster, be it Krishna eating butter before his mother or Raven in Native American myth. We require that fun and mischief. So Ariel's function is to, and Mercury in classical mythology, Prometheus bound, stealing fire. It is the duty of man to carry a divine message, but also to challenge the gods, to not be utterly cowed and bowed by the gods above us, not to creak beneath the weight of Olympus, but somehow to reach beyond the realization of God within man. So, yes, there's mischief within Ariel. To somehow, for me, religion and spirituality aren't utterly about piety. It's not like, it's not like, let's discover the divinity within us so we can sit soberly, kneel upon a pew and devour scripture. No, because we are constantly alive. We are living, sparkling beings. Nature is all around us and we feed from it. So, of course, Ariel, whilst being a demonstration of man's relationship with God, is also mischief and fun.
Okay, now I have a hard time, well, no, I have a great time, actually, because I've read a lot of your plays, I've directed your plays and made them into movies. You don't seem to believe that there's one bad guy and one good guy. Somehow Prospero comes off, we love her, we think she's been maligned, and yet she's got a slave, she's torturing people. What is this? You're not like a contemporary writer where you have good and bad.
There is some bad within the best of us and some good within the worst of us. This duality is vital to understanding all things. Intelligence, in fact, I think it is complicit within the notion of intelligence, and certainly within genius, is the ability to hold mutually contradictory ideas. There's no simple resolution to the dilemma of man. Solzhenitsyn writes that the line between good and evil runs not between nations, states, races or creeds, but through every human heart. This is an important thing to embrace. We can't create monsters. We can't, within our culture, create icons of condemnation, but embrace within ourselves that there is darkness. So whilst Prospera has access to incredible wizardry and incredible creativity, there is also a darkness within her. There's also vengeance within her. These things are composite parts of her character, of course.
So would you call this Tempest of yours a comedy, a romance, a tragedy? What is it?
I would call it all of those things. I think it comprises each of those elements. In a way, it's a wonderful play to see brought to the screen because for me there is the romance at its core, the juvenile romance. I think is a thorough and beautiful exploration of love, young, beautiful, fresh love. Yet there is the betrayal and the usurping of the principles. And yes, I think necessarily there is always comedy, because you have to realise, of course, that the time for which these plays were written, it was competing with, like, your options are, oh, it's Sunday afternoon, I've not got a lot on, what shall I do? Here's your options. One, you can go to Aldgate and see a man hung by a rope. You can watch blood spray from his neck as the fraying rope rips into his esophagus. Entertaining the first few times. You can watch cocks fighting each other, flying feathers and spit and claws, and men throwing shekels, and the stink of sweat and earth under fingernails, and roaring and fucking, and cocks being sucked in the corners of the rooms. You can do that. That's an option. Or you could go and watch a play. You could go and watch a mere peccadillo, a one man's fancy. But here's our advantage. What we can create, which reality can never render, is magic, beauty, illusion, metaphor. This is where we can see the collision. Yes, we require the rawness of the tearing flesh. Yeah, you want to see murder and betrayal. And of course we want to see sex, but also magic, mystery, beauty. Oh no, because it seems that Elizabethan theatre has become incredibly erudite and esoteric now, that it is fair for the toffee-nosed and the snooty and the hoity-toity members of your culture. But for me, I'd be on opposite American Idol. That's what I'd be competing with, American Idol or Twilight. It was pop cultural. Now, if you can sneak in, almost as a suppository, into that flesh corridor, a little bit of information, God by the back door, then why not? But ultimately, it's the same audience that we're playing for.
So what were the groundlings? Who were the groundlings in your day? What was that?
Belching hoi polloi, the scum of the earth, were there amongst it, joining the soldiery, blacksmiths, filth, unemployed and unemployable, bawling and laughing, but scarcely be able to hear a word, let alone whether it was verse or iambic pentameter. They're just there because it's bawdy and raucous, and there's murder and cannibalism and fucking and filth.
Yeah, talk about Trinculo and Stefano in this play.
How dare you?
What?
I'm only joking. I think the clowns are an integral part of the piece. I think that sort of humour is a wonderful lubricant for any message. People don't like to be so fiercely penetrated by information. Sometimes it's nice to have a little butter on the tip to help it in, to give it easy passage on a Saturday afternoon. So Trinculo, Stefano, the clowns, Caliban are there to make sure that the play remains grounded and relevant, that it's not all high-minded ideas about sorcery and science and the nature of love. Sometimes that's not relevant if you're just hammering out horseshoes 12 hours a day. What you want is a bit of a chuckle, a bit of a giggle, a bit of a guffaw, some laughter.
You've got one line for Trinculo: misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows. Can you explain that?
Lack of options, lack of choice. How many times do you compromise on a daily basis? Constant compromise. Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows. How many, like in a literal sense, out of misery, I've taken to my bed all manner of fellows, peculiar ulcerated creatures, flaky skin. You should see the state of my mattress. Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows. Many's the morning when I've thought that, when I've woken up with an aroma hanging in the air and a fug of guilt across my mind, and I thought, misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows. Fortunately, it's also given me an elbow. Kapow! And out the door they go.
And who is the strange bedfellow this time that you're getting into bed? Or Trinculo's getting into bed?
Trinculo, of course, chows down beneath a leather gabardine with Caliban. Yeah, and like that's not a choice that anyone would easily make, all lit as he is with crustaceans and curse words.